What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Lambeau Field Atrium. I'm Wes Hodkiewicz, joined alongside my colleague Michael Spofford before tomorrow night's Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears Thursday night football game, the Color Rush game. Mike, I can't believe we're already talking football again. It seems like it's been a pretty quick turnaround.
This is crazy, going from Sunday to Thursday, and at least we didn't have to get on any airplanes or whatever, but it still went by awful fast.
Feels like it. But we will be answering your questions here for the next few minutes. Anything that you might have leading up to tomorrow night's game. I already see one about the new player on the roster, Knile Davis. Mike, what do we know about him? What do you think of him?
Well, we know he's fast. We know that based on all that stuff about him coming out in the draft. He was a third-round pick in 2013. That's only one round after Eddie Lacy was drafted by the Packers in the second round back in 2013. So I just don't know how quickly he can be up to speed, what a guy can bring to the table in a ball game when he shows up on Tuesday morning and you have to play the game on Thursday night. Can they get him a package of plays maybe on offense to be able to help out? Can he do something on special teams? It's really a kind of a mystery in a sense, and I think he's kind of the wild card, you might say, for Thursday night's ball game.
He certainly is. I really liked him coming out of Arkansas in 2013. Obviously, he went a round later than Eddie Lacy. I forget what number exactly he was drafted, but certainly John Dorsey, that was a tremendous draft for the Chiefs overall. I mean, you look at, they built their roster through that draft, and Davis, I think, has a lot of talent, but just with, Sarkandrick West and Spencer Ware, all the guys that have kind of come to the forefront, really didn't have a lot of opportunities there. Now we'll see what he can do with the Packers. Ty Montgomery, will he be getting reps in the backfield? I know Aaron Rodgers this week talked about this a little bit, saying that he thought that was incredibly effective, the way they were able to use him, and really suits his skill set well. If you get Montgomery open in the open field, he can make plays, and I thought we saw some of that against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think so. It's safe passes, high percentage type stuff, and as you say, get him in some space, give him a chance to make a guy miss, and then you're not asking for him to turn all those plays into 25, 30-yard gains, but you can certainly move the chains that way. And Mike McCarthy even called himself out in a sense this week, said he needs to get the ball to Ty Montgomery more. Also said he needs to get the ball to Randall Cobb more.
Right.
I think in similar type of thing, Randall Cobb, whether it's in the backfield or in the slot, it doesn't have to be the big plays downfield, but you can move the chains. You're laughing about
I am. Well, Duke Bauer's over there working the audio for us, I think, a little bit. Made me kind of laugh in the corner of my eye.
You throw me off.
I am. But you make to make your point, and not to interrupt it, but it's something that Randall Cobb has done so effectively in the past. Yeah. And I thought immediately from the moment that Sam Seal stepped to the podium and talked about how Montgomery was a bigger version of Cobb, this was a guy that had that capability. And I thought the fun part about that game, and I understand there was a lot of frustration, there were issues, I get it. But to see Montgomery break out the way he did, 10 catches, didn't have a catch all year, played 17 offensive snaps, I thought that was really important. And when you look at building a team throughout the course of the season, that was a big performance out of him.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's potentially another option for Mike McCarthy. And as the Packers deal with these injuries at running back, and we don't necessarily know how this is going to sort out over the next few weeks, to be developing another offensive weapon like that at this time of year can be invaluable to Aaron Rodgers in this offense.
I want to throw in there too, make sure tomorrow night you can actually watch this game on Twitter. I think that'll be the first Green Bay Packers game ever broadcast on Twitter, I believe.
All right.
Correct?
I would imagine so.
I'm getting a nod from Ryan Hartwig over there, so I wanted to make sure we got that plug in. The secondary, Mike, a lot of questions there. We found out right before we stepped out here, Sam Shields has already been placed on injured reserve. Quentin Rollins, Demarius Randall have both been ruled out for this game with their groin injuries. What do you expect from the Packers secondary?
Well, I mean, you have to expect a better performance than against the Cowboys because, for one, they're prepared for it now as opposed to losing Demarius Randall in the first half and then Dimitri Goodson having to step in and Ladarius Gunter having to switch sides and all of those things that they had to adjust to on the fly against Dallas. Also, Dallas is a much better team, a much more complete offense than Chicago.
Right.
So I look for the Packers secondary to play better. We talked about this earlier today that the young cornerbacks need to rely on the veteran leaders back there. Micah Hyde, Morgan Burnett, Clinton Dix. These are guys who have been through the wars. They've done it out there time and time again. those guys have to lead the way for the young guys and make sure that the defense gets back to playing the way it was playing prior to the Dallas game.
It's almost funny a little bit, Mike, to sit here and talk about Micah Hyde as one of the veterans in that group, and not no disrespect to Mike, he's one of the most mature human beings you'll ever meet, but it just seems like yesterday we were talking about him being the rookie that stepped in and played a really valuable role in the nickel spot, and now he is a vet.
Yeah, he's a fourth-year guy. He's been around. He's played a lot of football for this team, a lot of defense, a lot of special teams, and I mean, as we talked about, I mean, maybe he plays running back Thursday.
Yeah, who knows? He said he could be a reporter. He did say that.
True.
He threw that in there,
true.
too, that he can handle this.
Yeah.
But one more thing I want to make as far as that secondary is concerned, and I was asking Morgan Burnett a little bit about this. They really did widen out those job responsibilities for the safeties this year. And certainly Hyde's been doing that for a number of years now, but Burnett also sliding down and playing some slot cornerback in the dime package. I think that's been really beneficial. That gives them some flexibility in that spot. Kentrell Bryce has really developed nicely for an undrafted rookie, and Dom Capers showing a lot of faith in him, putting him on the back end. So there are a multitude of guys that they can go to. The biggest question is just really those boundary cornerbacks, because you have Gunter, who didn't play, I think it was all of 8 snaps last year during the regular season. Suddenly he becomes a guy that's been almost every down for them since the opener. And now Dimitri Goodson, who, when you look at his situation, he's played in 21 career games now, but has not had an official start. So if he does get the look against the Bears, it's going to be a big opportunity for him. And as he said this week, it's his time. It's his time to show these past 3 years have been working towards something, and he can be accountable in this defense.
Yeah, never underestimate a motivated NFL player. I mean, you know, for all of the potential doom and gloom that the fans are worried about with what's going on with the injuries, this is all about opportunity for a guy like Dimitri Goodson, and for, you know, a guy like Niall Davis coming in from Kansas City, and a chance, you know, he's a guy with a whole new lease on his career, and how these guys react in these situations is always it's always interesting to watch, because they can make themselves a much more valuable part of the team than maybe they've been to this point.
Totally. Will Jeff Janis get his chance to show that he can be a part of this team, or get his chance to show what he can do, I think was the question. I didn't catch the end of it. We got a little bit of that last week. I mean, with the Packers using as many of these formations as they did, particularly on that opening drive where everybody other than Brett Hundley had seen the field, they have found ways to get Janis on the field, and certainly now that he's getting those reps with the offense, to take a line from Edgar Bennett that we hear from him a lot, it's about making the most of those chances.
Yeah, absolutely. Take advantage of it. If Ty Montgomery is going to be lined up in the backfield, Jared Abbrederis has been ruled out for this game with a quadricep injury, and Devontae Adams is questionable coming off of his concussion. All of those factors, and the fact that Janis did get in the game and got a fair number of snaps on offense against Dallas, I think, you know, it's definitely a possibility that he could play a much bigger role against the Bears than he has to this point in the season.
All right, Josh Amaker, I believe was your name. If it wasn't, I apologize. I think he had a really nice question asking what is the biggest threat that the Bears present right now. Well, I think it comes down to 2 things. Brian Hoyer's played really well, and he's protected the football. We talked so much about Dak Prescott last week in his string of going without an interception. Hoyer now, I think, is something like 168 passes without a pick yet. Does have 1 fumble loss, but has really done a nice job of managing that offense. And then you look at Jordan Howard, too. Came into the season as the number 3 running back out of Indiana. I got to watch him quite a bit last year just because I like watching Indiana football. And he really impressed me from the beginning. I mean, he was really the focal point of that offense. Originally came from UAB when they shut down their program, transferred out there, and now finds himself as the starting running back for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, he's averaging, 5 yards a carry. He didn't have a very good game last week against Jacksonville. The Bears really struggled to run the ball in that game, and now Josh Sitton is I believe, doubtful on the injury report. So most likely Josh Sitton will not be playing in his return to Lambeau Field, and the Bears will have a backup there at left guard.
Eric Kush, I think it's going to be.
Yeah, it could be
from
could
Hard Knocks.
Yeah, could be tough. Could be tough for the Bears to run the ball, because I think the Packers' run defense is, they took one on the chin. Let's be fair, against the Dallas Cowboys, but they know they're out to prove that they're better than that, and I think this game for the Bears offensively comes down to Brian Hoyer and comes down to can they punch it in the end zone, much like the Packers have had trouble in the red zone finishing off drives. That's been the Bears' problem too. Brian Hoyer racks up a whole bunch of yards, but then they don't score enough points because they can't get the ball in the end zone and they have to settle for field goals. This game Thursday night, I think, really comes down to red zone offense, red zone defense for both sides.
Absolutely, and this was a good point someone made too. With you look at Knile Davis coming in here. How much can you legitimately expect from him in his first game? Now, if that wasn't enough, as you joked about and wrote about this week, I mean, he's playing video games on Monday night, thinking he's getting ready for his off day. Suddenly, now he's on a short week with a new team. So I don't know, and I've said this on our show too, Packers Unscripted. I don't think you can expect him to be out there 70 plays, but as Aaron Rodgers sort of alluded to this week during his news conference, you want to try to find a package for him where he's comfortable and can operate in, and then that's where you start. That's the launching point, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and as little as he was being used in Kansas City, if there's a guy on a short if there's a guy on a short week who's going to have a fairly fresh body, fresh legs, all that kind of stuff, it could be Knile Davis, and it would be really interesting to see if the Packers are able to take advantage of that.
Is Jared Cook going to be healthy for the game? Jared Cook was one of 7 players that was listed as out for that. Just to review that, and I will probably forget somebody's name, and Mike will correct me, but it's Eddie Lacy, James Starks, Demarius Randall, Quentin Rollins, Jared Abbrederis with the quad will not play in this game, Chris Banjo, and Jared Cook. So those are the 7 right now that are out. Devontae Adams actually was a limited participant in practice today on the injury report.
Back at practice, which would indicate he's cleared from the concussion protocol. So
he's questionable.
Yeah, he might be able to play.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how exactly they want to do this. But I mean, you look at how you start this season, the 7 receivers, that was viewed as an area where the Packers had a lot of different potential, a lot of different players in ways that you could use them. And as you kind of alluded to a little bit, when you have Ty Montgomery, and depending on how you want to, line him up, there's a lot of different guys that they could still, even though you don't have Abbrederis, there are still a lot of different ways that you can use these receivers to maybe potentially find something on offense to hang your hat on.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, the Packers pulled the big 5 out of mothballs, you might say, with last week with the situation at running back. You put Rodgers in the shotgun, spread him out, and then let him try to take advantage of certain matchups. Hard to say with Adams being questionable and with Abbrederis being out, but how much they would use that against the Bears. But I certainly don't rule it out. Maybe depending on this running back situation for the Packers going forward, maybe Big 5 ends up being something that becomes a more regular part of the offense going forward, not just a change of pace, you might say. Who knows?
No question. Now the question on everybody's mind: why did the Packers get rid of Chad Clifton? Was that that was a question on here? Would you like to talk about 2011 quick?
That was a while ago.
Okay, all right.
Chad Clifton's last game in this building.
Packer Hall of Fame, though.
Yeah,
he's in there now.
He's in there.
So that's kind of fun. Something wrong with Clay? Hardly saw him at the Dallas game. Well, he was working off of that ankle injury, and I believe it was the hamstring that ended up keeping him out against Detroit.
Yeah.
So he's been kind of working back from that. Dom Capers kind of had him on a little bit of a rep count in that first game against the Giants. It seemed like, I don't know the exact numbers on the defensive snaps, but they did expand that workload a little bit. But certainly going up against Tyron Smith, a difficult matchup there. Now you look at what the Bears have, and as we alluded to earlier, Josh Sitt might not play in this game. It's going to be important. You look at Hoyer. He's only been sacked 1 time in the last 2 games, has a 100 passer rating on the season. It's going to be important for them to put pressure on him, and certainly Clay Matthews, Nick Perry, Julius Peppers, and everybody else plays into that.
Yeah, this Packers defensive line and outside linebackers have to control the game on Thursday night with where the Packers are in the secondary, with playing the young guys at corner, and with what this defensive front 7 has done for the most part this season. That's where they have to lean defensively.
Right.
Those guys have to control the line of scrimmage, and if they do, I think the Packers win this ballgame.
Does Micah Hyde have a bigger role now in this defense? He certainly does. I mean, Micah's always kind of had a big role, just based on availability, I think, is a lot of times what it comes down to. I mean, this is a young man who can play both of the safety positions, both of the inside corner spots, has also, I think it's probably first you have to go back to his rookie year, but has played outside corner for them before as well. And I think, as Joe Wedd even alluded to earlier this season, the Packers cornerbacks coach could play linebacker if they needed him to as well. I mean, he's a smart guy, knows how to handle the defense. And I've been saying for years, Mike, even before I got to my current occupation here with the Packers, Micah Hyde's one of the most underrated players on this team because, one, he's versatile, but two, he does a lot of things that I think go unnoticed.
Yeah, I think so too. He can play any of those spots. He can do things on special teams. He's such a smart player. I mean, the biggest reason that he was on the field as much as he was as a rookie 5th-round draft pick 4 years ago, or I guess 3 full seasons ago, was because of his smarts. I mean, the Dom Capers system did not flummox him in any way. I mean, he picked it up, he knew everything, and then boom, he could be relied on to be where he needed to be. And you know, the next step for him is to become more of a true playmaker on defense. We saw him have a great shot at an interception against Detroit. He couldn't quite bring it in. The more he plays, especially with this injury situation at cornerback, the more he has to take advantage of those opportunities. We saw him get a big interception against Oakland last year on the road. I think more of that stuff is coming for Micah Hyde, especially with the situation in the defensive backfield right now.
Definitely. Mike Spofford, I'm Wes Hodkiewicz here at the Lambeau Field Atrium answering some of your questions on Periscope. A reminder that tomorrow's Thursday Night Football game will be live on Twitter as well. Wow, look at that, 10,000 people watching right now, Mike. Do you want to say hello to anybody?
Hi, kids.
If my parents knew how to use a computer, I'd let them know. This is one of the things, too, that I think is kind of interesting, and people have been alluding to this earlier with Niall Davis. Will he be active in this game? I mean, Mike, kind of by a process of elimination, if you go off of having 7 guys out already, he's going to have to be suited up. Now, the question is exactly how much he ends up playing, but, I mean, this is going to be a chance for some of those guys that maybe haven't been able to get up these last couple weeks, even if it isn't their natural position at cornerback or running back, they're going to have to be suited up for this game because just kind of the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, exactly. You've already ruled out 7 guys, so there's your 7 that takes you from 53 down to the game day 46. So there aren't going to be any mysteries as to who's on the inactive list 90 minutes before kickoff on Thursday night. But as you say, the question is how much will Davante Adams play with coming off the concussion? How much will Niall Davis play, having only been here since Tuesday morning?
Right.
Those things, you know, that's all stuff for the coaches to figure out. They may not even necessarily have those answers right now, but they're going to figure that out between now and kickoff. And you know, these Thursday night games, I mean, everything happens so fast. The preparation is so compressed. Everybody has to get ready so quickly, and it's just you kind of roll the ball out there and play a game on a Thursday night, and you see how it goes. At the end of the day, it still counts the same. It's either a win or a loss, and it's going to be on your record for the rest of the season. But these Thursday night games are just different, and both teams are dealing with all kinds of injuries and everything, and we just have to see what shakes out over 3+ hours on Thursday night.
Definitely. Are we going to see more of Richard Rodgers in this game? I think we've seen more of Richard Rodgers the last 2 weeks. I mean, if you look at his stats and where his snap counts have been, they've been able to incorporate Justin Perillo a little bit, the third-year tight end out of Maine, is sort of the guy that spells that, works in those 2 tight end packages. But Richard Rodgers has a big part in this offense. He had it when Jared Cook was healthy, but certainly now that Cook has been down the last couple weeks, he's had to jump into a bigger role, and certainly that's something he's accustomed to based on his first 2 NFL seasons.
Yeah, for sure. Richard Rodgers will do what's needed here. It was really unfortunate on that the ball over the middle. I think it was in the first half of the Dallas game. Richard was wide open, almost surprising how open he was, and the pass was just a little behind him. Could have maybe been caught, would have been a tough catch. You know, the 2 Rodgers just didn't quite connect on that one, and it was too bad because that was one of those plays that you think if the timing is there and everything works there, then maybe that jump starts the offense and changes the momentum of things a little bit, and it just didn't happen. But we've seen what Richard Rodgers can do in this offense, and I think he's in line to play a heck of a lot of snaps on Thursday night.
It's coffee, by the way. I'm drinking coffee. How much faith do we have in Meach Goodson? I actually have always really liked Dimitri a lot in terms of what he brings to the table. The thing that people have to understand is, although he was a cornerback at Baylor, he was formerly a point guard at Gonzaga. That brought them to the Sweet 16, mind you. So there was a late transition to be made there. He also had some injuries at Baylor that he dealt with. So when he got to Green Bay, there was still kind of this raw athlete there. I remember a conversation I had with Joe Witt near the end of his rookie season, where Witt was talking about how, a lot of people are kind of talking about the things that are going wrong with him, and that he isn't where he needs to be. He's like, I see it. I see it every day in practice. I see it every day when he's on the scout team. And he's become a really vital part of the special teams unit. I mean, he's been a guy that as a gunner last year was right there with Jeff Janis, and now getting that opportunity on defense, I'm curious to see how he plays. I know Joe Witt is probably also going to have eyes on him, hoping that what he's seen for the last 3 years can come out and really show.
Yeah, for sure. And that's really the challenge with Gunter and Goodson both is Brian Hoyer's going to come after these guys. I mean, the Bears are going to be perfectly aware of where the Packers are in their depth chart at cornerback and who these guys are. They're going to be lining up across from Alshon Jeffrey and maybe trying to guard Zach Miller, the tight end down the field, whatever the matchup may be. That's where the Bears are going to attack. If you look at the way the Bears have struggled at times to run the ball, what the Packers have done, generally speaking, except against the Cowboys with run defense.
Sure.
This comes down to Brian Hoyer attacking the Packers cornerbacks, and they're going to be tested. They're going to be challenged. We'll see if they answer the bell.
Well, and let's be honest, too. When you look at the Packers' run defense, particularly Mike Daniels, I mean, these guys are hungry. They've looked at that, and that was a badge of honor for them to be able to carry that top-ranked run defense through the first month of the season. So having a performance like that against Dallas when you are facing the top-ranked run offense, I think that's something that's really going to propel them forward in terms of, okay, you've seen the best, but now we want to prove that we are also in that conversation. So I think that's going to be one of the big storylines to follow in this game, is how exactly they attack Jordan Howard and being able to really make that game one-dimensional, because that's one of the things the defense did incredibly well when you go back to that Giants game. They finally had that perfect mesh where you had where you had the run defense that you're expecting, and also the pass defense really stepped up too, despite not having Shields and Randall.
Yeah, if you can stop the run, if you're in the regular nickel and you can stop the run with the six-man box, essentially, you got your three corners and your two safeties. So you've got six guys up near the line of scrimmage in the box to stop the run. If you can succeed with that, you can keep the two safeties back to help the young corners and bracket some of those guys. You can play coverages like they did against the Giants, but much differently than they had to against the Cowboys, because you had to devote more bodies, more personnel to trying to slow down the run game and not let Ezekiel Elliott completely take over. And it was unfortunate for the run defense for the Packers. I think they're better than what they showed against the Cowboys, but when the Packers offense was not able to keep up points-wise, the Cowboys were just able to keep feeding Elliott, and the defense a couple times had to go right back out on the field in some tough spots, and then Elliott rips off a 25-yard run here, a 29-yard run there, and all of a sudden what was maybe going to be a reasonable performance by the run defense of 110 yards for Elliott becomes 150 plus.
And how good has the Packers' run defense been this year? They're still second in the league.
Yeah.
Still right behind, I think it's Baltimore now, 72.4 yards per game. So certainly they're going to be coming out looking to set the tone in that one as well. Really quickly, as we begin to wrap up here, Mike, when you look at this game, we do our 5 key matchups on the website. Obviously, you do your one last look. We also discussed it on Final Thoughts. What is the key to this game? When you break it all down, not to give anything away from the Final Thoughts video at all, but what do you think is going to be the biggest reason the Packers can come out of this game with a win on Thursday night?
I think it's Aaron Rodgers and the receivers getting into a rhythm in the passing game. The Bears, they're maybe not as banged up in the secondary as the Packers are, but pretty darn close.
Pretty close.
It seems like when you look at the injury report, the Packers have to, with where the Packers are running back and everything, this game is in Aaron Rodgers' hands. I know he's been criticized. I know everybody's trying to figure out what's wrong. He hasn't been as accurate as he expects to be. He hasn't been as secure with the ball as he expects to be. Those have been the two biggest issues in the two losses for the Packers this year against the Vikings and the Cowboys. But this is his game. This really comes down to number 12 under center for the Packers, making it happen and getting this win.
And as someone said, and I'm guessing they're being somewhat facetious, but saying less turnovers would help. If you look at the Packers historically, that's where the Green Bay Packers win. They win the turnover margin. It's something that they've done incredibly well over McCarthy's 10 years here in Green Bay. So that's where you got to get back to. Yes, you have to protect the ball on offense, and defensively you have to find ways to take it away. That's where this starts. That is the foundation, and everything else is built off it. So if you get back to that, I think the Packers get back to their home base.
Yeah, I think so too. If you had told me before the Cowboys game, as well as the Cowboys were playing, and with what Prescott had done protecting the ball, that the Packers were going to get 2 turnovers on defense, I really liked Green Bay's chances because the Packers traditionally have been a team that protects the ball. You certainly don't predict that the Green Bay offense is going to turn it over 4 times and come out -2 in a game where the defense got 2 takeaways. It was just strange all the way around the way that played out. But I don't think it's a trend for this offense. They've proven much more than they've disproven that they can protect the ball, and it's been a hallmark of McCarthy's offenses over the last decade, and I think they get back to doing that.
Absolutely. He's Mike Spofford. I'm Wes Hodkiewicz. This has been another edition of our Packers Periscope chat leading up to tomorrow night's game at Lambeau Field. One last reminder, you can watch this game on Twitter. Be sure to check that out. Did you know you can watch this on Twitter?
I'm aware of that.
I think it's under the memories section if you're on a phone or something like that. So be sure to check that out. Also, stay tuned to Packers.com for all of our coverage throughout the night. Videos, photos, social, everything at Packers on social media. Until next time, guys, for Mike, I'm Wes. We'll see you later.